Alright, now looking at the comprehension questions, like I said, many of you are scoring an average of 3, 4. I think the highest was an 8, but I think there was only one student. And for summary here, it wasn't easy for many of you as well because you're not able to identify points in a succinct way, or for some of you are a little bit too succinct such that you only submitted maybe 58 words. And that's not ideal as well. So today we're going to look at what you can do to ensure that you pick up all the relevant information and you are a bit judicious about what points you want to include in your summary, because just because that it is in that order 1 to maybe 12 points, it doesn't mean that you must always take point 1 to point 8. You can pick the ones that are shorter such that you can squeeze in a little bit more information, or you pick the ones whereby you are able to paraphrase a little bit better because you want to show off that you have that language capacity to get that language mark. So in case you have forgotten, this here is upon 15. So content marks are 8 points, language marks are 7 points. So the fact that you have 8 points for content also means that if you don't paraphrase at all, you don't distort the meaning at all, it's quite easy to get 8 marks, right? But if you paraphrase it and you don't do a good job paraphrasing it, you change the meaning, then your language marks will definitely be affected, and it may compromise your content mark as well because the original meaning is wrong. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you're doing your summary. I usually advise students to do the summary first because the last thing you want is to rush through the summary and to put in at least 25 minutes to write the summary. It does take some time. Okay, so you try to set aside 25 minutes to just do a summary first. So this question is asking you to use your own words as far as possible, explain how various factors contributed to the rise of the modern food industry, and you're only to use information from paragraph 3 to paragraph 6. So what I've done here is I've put down different paragraphs on each slide, and I have indicated whether it is a factor or it's something to show how it has contributed to the rise of the industry, and some reminders for you that if you find it hard to paraphrase, you're not expected to paraphrase nouns most of the time. Nouns are harder to paraphrase. You really do need to have very precise vocabulary words to change the meaning of nouns. Sometimes they cannot be paraphrased. So the easiest way to do so is just to paraphrase adjectives, adverbs, and verbs. Okay? If you're really stuck, you can't paraphrase at all, then the least you can do is to try to change the sentence structure. Alright? And what I usually advise students to do is, since you have only 80 words and there are 8 points, each point should be about 10 words. Okay, so if you realize that you're writing a lot more than 10 words for each point and you don't have a particular point that is less than 10 words, then you know that you're definitely not going to maximize your word count. Okay, so like I said, do spend enough time to do your summary. Don't leave it to the end because when you are in a panic, you are not going to do this part well. And 15 marks upon 50 is very significant. 15 marks upon 50 is like 30%. Okay, so do the strategic thing. Okay, so what I have also done is that I have kind of tried to show you how I paraphrase certain word choices here. And then you can see that at the end, when I consolidate everything, I may not even use it in the same way that I've indicated here. Okay, so it takes a lot of practice, and when you're doing your homework, I really hope that you're intentional so that you don't waste the practice opportunities. Okay? Alright, so enough nagging. So looking at this here, we want to highlight certain factors. I think it's quite easy to pick up the factors, but it may be a bit challenging to be succinct about it. Okay, so the first point, the common mistake is that many students think that adoption means introduction. But if you adopt a practice, you adopt a habit, means you use that habit, you have the habit. So introduction is not the most accurate word choice to use. And if you have used that, I don't think I've given you your point 1. Okay, second one I think is quite manageable. I think most of you highlighted that. But it also made me realize that some of you cannot spell restaurant. Okay, so avoid making spelling mistakes because spelling mistakes affect your language marks too. Okay, next one. I realize that some of you are still putting in examples. I'm not sure why, because examples do take up a lot of word count and you don't need examples to make your point in your summary. So don't do this. Okay, the rest you can read on your own. Okay, then for the next paragraph, paragraph 4, similarly, what I've done is I've included them in different colors so that you can make a comparison and you can see how they are being paraphrased. I'm not sure why the original answer key gave two different points to point 4. So if you see 2 4s in your marking, point 4 and point 4, do know that they are two separate points and I accepted them as such. Okay, and one very striking grammatical error that I kept seeing in some of your summary is your tendency to use this more easier. Okay, so it's wrong. Why? Because easier is already a comparative form of the word easy. So easier is already more easy. So if you use more easier, it's like more easy, you know, so it's grammatically inaccurate. So whenever you see that it's already in its comparative form, meaning to say that it's with the ER, this is the comparative form. Don't put a more, it's already embedded within the word itself. Okay, if this here is the superlative form. So easier, easiest. Easier, easiest. You don't say more easiest or most easiest. It's just redundant. Okay. Next, paragraph 5. Paragraph 5 here, again, some common mistakes because we're so used to saying apps colloquially that we forget that the actual way to write it in full is application. So make sure that you spell it in full. Alright? If not, it affects your language score again. Okay? Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna scroll ahead. Last one. Okay, last paragraph is quite poorly done because there's so much information within this paragraph itself. Students tend to find it very challenging to incorporate everything into one point. Okay, so even this, if I read this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 words, I may not want to take point 10 because I don't have 17 words to spare for 1 point. Okay, the next one, point 11, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12. Okay, I might consider this if I have extra words to spare. Okay, the last one, pretty proud of this. I thought that I have managed to paraphrase a lot of things, right? You can see the blue, the orange, the red, and the pink. Okay, but how many words is this? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16. So 16 words. You know, I may not even choose this unless I really have 6 extra words to spare somewhere. Okay, so you have to be very strategic and you figure out whether or not you have the extra word to spare. Okay, the issue with point 11 is that some students paraphrase this word from safe and they write secure, but it doesn't really make sense in this context because the safety over here you're talking about is the fact that it's hygienic, right? You are not putting yourself at risk of contamination or spreading of the disease, so there's no risk. So it's not quite secure. When you say secure, it sounds like the noodles or the soup wouldn't spill out of the container, but in this case, secure doesn't convey the same meaning of safe that you are talking about within this context. So when you paraphrase, you have to make sure it's in the same context as well. Okay, convenient appeared quite a few times in the passage, so you want to show that you have more words than just easier. Okay, so hassle-free is considered one word, and it's another possible way you can paraphrase convenient in this context. Okay, so the next paragraph, you can see that it is about how there's unprecedented growth. It has grown substantially. For me, between point 10 and point 12, I very much would rather take point 12 because I feel that I'm showcasing a lot more of my language capacity. Okay, but if there's limited word count left, I would just take point 11. Okay, so you have to be strategic when you're doing your summary. That's all I'm trying to say. Okay, so looking at the whole thing, before I show you the full summary, just take a look. So like I said just now, you try to maximize your word count as best as you can. So that means to say you don't write up to 58 words and then call it a day. You try to push it to its maximum 80 words. If not, you try to hit 78 or something. So how do I usually try to maximize the word count? I try to include some connecting words. Okay, especially if they're asking you about pros and cons. Sometimes for your summary, they not only just ask you for factors, they may ask you for problem, and then they may ask you for solutions. They may ask you for pros and cons. They may ask you for past and present. So these are the usual question types. Alright, and it's usually helpful to include connecting words, but don't overdo it also. You don't have to write connecting words in front of every single sentence you write in your summary. Okay, so you can include that. Now, another thing that I really want you to stop doing is to stop stacking multiple points into one sentence. Okay, just because it's a summary doesn't mean that everything has to be joined with a comma. That is also a sentence structure issue, and when it's a sentence structure issue, when it affects your sentence structure or the clarity, it's a language issue. Okay, so you'll definitely be penalized for doing this because it just makes your point harder to understand. Right? So looking at paragraph 6, for instance, I am not going to combine point 10, 11, and 12 within the same sentence because they're all talking about slightly different things. Right? It doesn't make sense. Okay, so you will see in my paragraph, you will see that I've highlighted some words in blue. That's to show you that I'm talking about the factor, and then those in red is trying to show you how it has led to the rise. Okay, I've tried my very best. I picked and chose. I looked at what I have here. I definitely want the shorter ones. Okay, I'll try to keep the shorter ones. The longer ones I will consider whether or not I have the space for it. Okay, and I try to include everything from every paragraph. So if I have 4 paragraphs to summarize, I try to take 2 from each paragraph if I can. Okay, so this is how it looks like. You can see that I've included some connecting words. Okay, lastly, has to be at the last point. Okay, so lastly should just be kept at the last one. You don't use additionally for the last connecting word because that is not conclusive. Okay, so where appropriate you can use thus, therefore, hence. For me, usually I'll just use lastly. Okay, additionally is one word. Don't go and add on the other hand, you know, however will be easier. Don't just use something that is longer. Okay, so use something that is short. Now taking a look at this, you can see that there are some points that are a lot shorter. So this, for instance, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 8 words. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 7 words. 1 2 3. So this can work. Okay, and you can see that I don't write more than 2 points in one sentence. Okay, so maybe I use a different color, makes it a bit easier to see. Okay, this here is, it only has 2 points. This to this only has 2 points as well. Okay, nothing more than that, otherwise it'd be too convoluted to understand. This and this, only 2 points too. Okay, and last one, it's just 1 line. This is 1 line. Okay, so this is the best I can do over the weekend. So I didn't feel that I want to push myself to include this. So if you want to do that, please be my guest. See how you can squeeze that in. Alright, so I hope that this has given you enough idea about how you can work on your comprehension, your non-narrative comprehension, because currently what you are doing is, I don't think that's your best work. I think you have more capacity to do better. So I hope this is helpful. If you find that in the future you need a crash course, a reminder, I think I was pretty comprehensive in these 2 videos. So do save the link and come back to this from time to time. Okay? I'm going to sleep. Good night.